With over 500,000 trees and shrubs already planted and growing, it's easy to forget you are in the city. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stained City way.
Is this me now? Is this me now, finally? Okay, is it me now, finally? Oh, man, I wish I had self-esteem issues, because then I'd just get you guys to just come and clap for me every day, and then I'd be fine. Can I hear it again? Oh, stop. There's no need for that. Listen, this is our first ever real talk. Oh, Betuna, hello, shine. This is our first ever real talk outside the studio that has an audience. So this is very special. You guys are very special. You're like our first ever, and obviously we're going to have ourselves a good time. And with SABC 3 during the journey, what was so important for us, we're like, what do you want to do with the journey? Do you want to inspire? What message do you want to leave? And we figured that today's guest is absolutely the one to have, so we can have a chat and just realize that the only shackles we have are the ones in our mind. This guy has crossed the Atlantic. Now that ocean that took down the Titanic? Yes. Yeah. He's crossed the Atlantic on a paddleboard. Yeah. I'm serious. He's in the Guinness Book of Record for that. In 2000, he won the Mavericks Big Wave International. Now, that is the biggest surf competition in the world. And when he won that competition, he rode the most biggest wave set to record to date, right? This is him, and he's here to tell the tale. He's a philanthropist. He is such a nice guy. And the next hour with Real Talk right here on SABC 3 is going to be all about him. So that same applause that you gave me, I think that he deserves it. Ladies and gentlemen, please give the warmest round of applause to Chris Bertish. Can I grab one of these? All right, you can take a seat. So listen, earlier today you gave a talk, and I was laughing because a little bit of me, I was hating on you, because I'm like, how is it that he can ride waves, right? So you ride these waves and he can do all these amazing things, and he's still such a great public speaker. Because public speaking is my thing. I must be able to you swim, I public speak, okay? Now, when you can public speak, it means you want my salary as well, and I'm just gonna be upset about it.
Sorry, Anele, what can I say?
So did you actually go for training to be a public speaker?
No, I think what happened was I just got told that I was a useless public speaker and I must give up, and that was it for me.
But I mean, how important was it for you to become a great public speaker? Because we need to hear your message and we need to hear it properly.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, and you know, I always, throughout my life, I've had people tell me that things can't be done or they're impossible, and for me, that's just like it's like a catalyst for me. So it's like a motivator, and when people tell me something can't be done, I must give up, then it fuels my fire, and I just want to go out and prove them wrong and do it even more. And you know, I got told by one of the biggest speaking agencies in the whole of South Africa that I was useless and I should give up because I didn't come from the right background, didn't have the right experience, but I believed in myself, and I carried on going, and I did lots of talking at schools and for charities and everything else. And like everything in life, I think the more you do it and the more you put yourself in uncomfortable places, the more comfortable you get at it and the better you get, and you evolve and change and grow.
Here's a funny story. My maths mark was terrible, by the way. My maths teacher...
Me too, don't worry.
Good. You ride waves and I talk for a living. My maths teacher once wrote on my report card, Anele will do so much better in life if she stops talking so much. Right?
And now she gets paid.
And now here I am. Hello, Mr. Van Skalkbeck. So, speaking of speaking in public, you have to do a talk, but apparently your appendix is bursting. Do you remember this?
I actually do. I was meant to do a talk with Dr. Tim Noakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was on the power of the mind. And he was, I realized that I had a major appendix problem because I was driving and I had this incredible pain that I couldn't control, and it was so excruciating. I remember tears running down my face while I was driving, and I phoned the doctor and I told him what. He was like, "You need to come straight into the hospital. I think your appendix is bursting."
And you're like, "No, I have somewhere to go."
So I was like, "Actually, I'm going to be doing a talk with Tim Noakes, and it's on power of the mind. So there's no way I can actually, you know, not do the talk. I need to control the power of my mind
and
to be able to do the talk, and then I'll go." So I went and I literally lay in the back of a car for the 45 minutes before I was going to go up on stage, and I then went, like, as they called me up, I got out of the car, I walked straight up on stage, did the talk, and then went straight to Constantiaberg, and 45 minutes later, I was having my appendix out.
Yeah, okay, no. Did you take an aspirin or something at least, just like a painkiller, Myprodol, something, like just something? Tell me you took something.
My rum and coke will do that.
Oh, okay. Where did your, I don't know if I want to put it like this, but it's the only way, your lack of fear for water, where did that, do your parents tell you were 2 years old and you wouldn't get out the bath, or you were constantly in the shower, or when it rained, you were outside?
Anele, that's a great question. I was very fortunate that I grew up with a father who sort of put me and immersed me in the ocean, me and my brothers, from a really early age. So I've sort of become like the fish without gills. You know, like my happy place is in the ocean more so than it is on land. Oh, so, you know, I guess I'm very fortunate in a lot of ways that it's my place where I'm the most comfortable. So when I'm out in the ocean, even when the conditions are very extreme, I've learned to be able to manage my fear and use it to my advantage. So a lot of people don't realize that fear is an emotion, like any other emotion. So once you realize it's an emotion, like being happy or sad, you realize you can control it. If you can control it, then you can manipulate it. If you can manipulate it, then you can use it to your advantage. So in big wave surfing, I learned to be able to take fear and like face it, embrace it, and then turn it inwards and use it to my advantage. So take fear and turn it on its head. And I learned to be able to, so when you get into a fearful state, all the endorphins go through your body and then adrenaline kicks in.
But that would require for you to be in the water for a long time for you to be able to turn fear around.
Not at all.
Really?
So in big wave surfing, you know, when you get confronted by, you know, waves the size of 6-story buildings, that fear kicks in quite quickly.
Yes, as it should.
As it should. Because
there shouldn't be water as high as a 6-story building chasing you.
But the good news is that when that happens, then, you know, your adrenaline kicks in, which makes you heighten all your mental state, your physical state, forces more oxygen through your system. So it suddenly makes you superhuman and allow you to do things that you normally shouldn't be able to do. And I've learned to be able to control your mental state when everything slows down in that like amazing state, to be able to process it, to be able to do things that you're not normally able to achieve in that state. So it's using it to enhance yourself instead of paralyze yourself, like what happens with a lot of people.
No, but then, Chris, when everything slows down, according to the movies, you're about to die.
There's a very fine line.
So, how many times
I walk that line a lot.
Yes, I'm about to say, because how many times have you seen your life flashing, like the end of the tunnel?
I've had a couple of pretty close calls, but, you know, 99% of the time, you can bring yourself back from that state. And I'm very fortunate that I've managed to do that numerous times, and it gives you a very clear sense of purpose and where you want to go in life and what's important to you. And I think whether it be surfing giant waves or doing, you know, crazy adventures, even though some of the adventures that I do are actually just on an annual basis that are what I call micro adventures, which everybody can do, which all it does is it brings you back into a state of presence to be able to make you actually appreciate everything around you. And we all need that in life, I think.
All right, so listen, when he comes out of near-death experiences, he just feels more powerful. When I come out of near-death experiences, I stop my diet. I'm just like, I almost died, just bring the potato chips. Listen. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, I want to hear more about these near-death experiences, and we're going to speak about the 93 days that he spent at sea raising money for the Smile Foundation. Come back to us. And welcome back to Real Talk right here on SABC 3, where the stage is yours. And this stage happens to be on board the MSC Sinfonia, hashtag the Journey Cruise, all thanks to SABC. And our guest today is the man who believes that nothing is impossible. And look, when people say things like that and they can prove them, then, you know, you can't argue with him. Chris Bertish in the studio. So there's something that the guy, Tim Noakes, you said his name, Tim Noakes. Yes. Is it Professor? I want to say Professor Tim Noakes. Yeah. He wrote something in your book, and I was just like, yo, I never felt so inadequate in my life, but here we go. He says, he's talking about Chris, obviously. He's like, first, these men and women are without pride. Their outstanding characteristic is humility and self-reflection. This is essential, for nature will expose any weakness. And it matters not who you think you are. When you are 30 feet below the surface, not knowing which way is up, and being dragged along at 40 kilometers an hour by a 60-foot wave that will release you only after 90 seconds, your only hope of survival is full knowledge of exactly who you really are. Believing you are something other than that is the quickest way to death.
Wow.
Like,
that's quite scary,
right?
Even just hearing that.
Because here's the thing, we always get told, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. But the choice to be yourself or the journey to be yourself has never been a life and death thing. And for you, it is. So I want to know, how do you become yourself?
Well, I think that's a fascinating question for the simple reason that I think there's a famous saying that says, know thyself. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like a simple comment, but it's actually quite difficult to get to know yourself. And I believe it's only when you put yourself in difficult circumstances that you really get to find out who you really are. And that's why people, you know, when people are having a good time, it's very easy to you know, have self-reflection. Everything's great. But it's actually only when you hit rock bottom or when things are really high, you know, the stakes are really high or you come close to death that you really get to know who you really are and what you're made of. Okay. And I'm very fortunate in a way that I have put myself in those kind of places on quite a regular basis, and it helps you get to know who you are and what you're actually capable of, and that no matter what situation you get yourself into, that you can get yourself out. But you started surfing professionally at the age of 13. Well, I think that the definition of professional is that you get paid to do it for a living. I've never, and the fascinating thing is that a lot of people also assume that I've been a paid professional athlete or adventurer or whatever else, and I've never been a paid professional surfer or paddler or adventurer, even though I've done what I've done. And I think a lot of people look at it and go, well, and you know, how did he do what he did? Well, I've always found a way to be able to make ends meet, or sponsors, or working really hard, multiple different jobs, whatever it would take to be able to do it. Didn't you win $50,000 for riding the wave at the Mavericks? Yes, I did. Then what do you mean you don't get paid to do what you're doing? It's amazing! $50,000! Yeah, that's a lot of money. Except for the company went bankrupt. Okay. Okay. So this is part of that story that's in the book where, you know, I'd borrowed a whole lot of money from people because I'd run out of money, I'd run out of sponsorship. I borrowed from all my friends and family to be able to go over and compete, even getting on the plane without even knowing whether the event was going to run. And then when I won the event, it was the biggest prize money in big wave surfing history. Big check. Yay, celebrations! And then they went bankrupt. And then I only got like a quarter of the money that I was meant to get, which actually ended up, and then the company never paid the tax in America, so then I got double taxed on the money that I did get in South Africa, and all it worked out to be was exactly the perfect amount to be able to pay back all my friends and family that I borrowed money from them. But the interesting thing about that story is that in life, I think sometimes you've got to work out what your goal was. Yeah. And in my goal and in my dream that I'd been working towards for over 15 years to get into that event, to be able to compete against the world's best, and I accomplished that goal and then I won it, which was my goal and dream. In that goal and dream, there was nothing ever about money. And isn't it amazing how life has a way of being able to give you everything that you dreamed of and you're working towards and nothing more. And I find it amazing that when I paid all my friends and family back, I actually ended up with nothing. And I was like, but that's all I wish for, is that I'd completed that event and lived my goals and my dreams. And then I ended up making a film and writing a book. And all
But there's
kind
that picture of you riding that big wave that, you know, that looks like everyone must run for cover. Surely when you look at that picture, you think to yourself, there's my $50,000, it's fine.
You know, the memory of that event and that day is priceless.
Do you not find it a little annoying at times when you constantly have to convince people that surfing is a real sport? Because for us, we're like, "Ooh, beaches and like," do you know what I'm saying? You play to us. You take a board, you're in water, and now you want to tell me that this is a job? Come on.
Okay, so the interesting thing is that surfing the small waves and the small wave world tour,
yes,
I can totally agree with you. Is like that it would be living the life. But for me, I'm chasing the biggest, most ferocious, coldest storms around the planet. So when other people are like, whoa, run for cover, batten down the hatches, I'm like, the smile on my face just gets bigger because I know that the waves are going to be enormous and no one's going to be there because they're all fearing for their life, and I'm flying in to be able to go and ride them. So, you know, there are not a lot of like ladies in bikinis on the beach where I go and surf.
So it's not Baywatch?
No, it's definitely
not One West Waikiki.
If I'm wanting to go and pick up chicks, then this is not the sport for that.
The one thing Tim Noakes said about you is that you've got the perfect balance in what you do between arrogance and humility. So how does one find that? Because you have to be arrogant enough to know that I will ride that wave, but at the same time, you have to be humble enough to know that the ocean is not your mother and it will take you down.
It's a good way of putting it. No, you're right. I think I wouldn't say it's an arrogance. I would say it's an immense sense of confidence. And it's an immense sense of confidence. And it's a confidence within yourself about your ability and all the knowledge and experience that you've built up and gained in order to do what you do and come out successfully in one piece. And the amount of planning and preparation and experience is exponential. I mean, I remember when I was training for the big wave Mavericks event, and I was training for 6 to 8 months before I train every day, twice a day, 6 days a week in the pool. So the surfing side of my training is only probably about 20% of what I actually do. And I remember meeting Handy Prinsloo, who's the world freediving ladies world champion freediver. And I used to see her sometimes in the afternoon, and she'd be like, oh, wow, I see you every day. And I was like, no, this is my second session in the pool of the day. And I think a lot of people don't understand like the level and immensity of the training that goes in order to be able to give you the peace of mind that when you get caught in the wrong place, like when the wave breaks here, don't be there. You know, but if you get caught in that place, then it's not the time you think to yourself, well, maybe I shouldn't have smoked that pack of Camels last night and had the 7 tequilas. That's the time when you think to yourself, I'm really glad I haven't drunk anything or smoked anything in 10 months, and I've been training 6 days a week. I can hold my breath for static just over 5 minutes, which is the equivalent of 1 minute and 30 seconds in order for your body to not get ripped apart by a wave, which feels like all your limbs are being ripped off your body. When you're trying to remain calm, think of fluffy clouds and not blackout where it feels like the oxygen's being forced out of your body and you're in such a dark, cold place 40 foot down that you know that if you don't get to the surface within 20 seconds, you're going to black out. So, yeah, it's an interesting place to be.
You see what I'm talking about. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about the 93 days he spent at sea over the Atlantic on a paddle boat, making his way towards, where was it? Antigua Bay in the Caribbean. You think to yourself, ooh, Caribbean, but not like this. We'll be right back. And welcome back to SABC 3, where the stage is yours. In studio, well, I'm not in studio. We're on a boat, really. And we've got a live studio audience. Hey, guys! They came to see Chris Bertish. He is the author of Stoked. Crossed the Atlantic in 93 days on a paddle board. I've been saying paddle boat. Apparently, I'm wrong. It is a board. What is the difference, Chris?
I think the most important thing is a paddleboard is very, very narrow, and it's about 17 feet long, and you stand up on it. And you've got one single-bladed paddle, and you stand up and you paddle, and then you change sides, and literally that's all you've got. So don't lose your paddle, otherwise.
I was about to say, do you have an extra paddle strapped to the board somewhere?
I had 4.
Okay.
Just in case.
And how did you ever lose the one?
The interesting thing is I lost everything else. So I had 4 sets of sunglasses, 4 hats, 8 things of sun cream, 7 water bottles, and 4 paddles. I lost everything else except for my paddles.
Your focus is good then. Your focus. How do you avoid the sun, or do you paddle at night?
I paddled at night a lot of the time, and but a lot of people also forget that when you paddle at night, especially if it gets overcast, which it is a lot, then you have no horizon, so you lose your balance. So then you have to use all your other senses in order to try and stay upright, because your balance goes, because you get vertigo because you have no horizon.
Yeah, you cannot.
So
see.
you have to fine tune all your other senses of hearing and the waves around you to be able to utilize the feeling in your feet to be able to know which way is up all the time.
And you left from Morocco?
I left from one of the most northern points of Morocco, and then through the Canary Islands without stopping, all the way across the Atlantic to Antigua in the Caribbean, 7,500 kilometers. Actually, it was 2,574,672 strokes.
I wanted to ask that. How do you know? Are you counting? 1,300,489, 1,300,400.
I had to do something to pass the time. No, I had a Garmin watch, which calculated my strokes and my stroke rate, and then also my heart rate and what have you, which was a great example, because when I thought I was going to get run over by multiple great super tankers, and when I saw great white sharks, it was quite interesting to see what my heart rate did.
Okay, yes, yeah. And directions, you can't stop to ask for directions. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well,
you know where you're going.
Yeah, you can ask for directions, but normally there are not a lot of people around to ask directions.
I was about to say, you're like in open ocean, you know? It's not like you can get a petrol station and you drive in, you're like, hey man,
where to is Brazil?
Where to is you see, you go down, you skip 3 robots and then shot left.
Get to the second shark, 1 squid, 3 super tankers, and then left.
And then if you see a whale, that's not where you are. Keep on driving.
Yeah, when you see a whale, watch the tail.
What do you do? How do you know where you're going?
No, I'm very fortunate that I come from a sailing background, so I've done the transatlantic numerous times on big open ocean yachts, and I've trained as a captain and a sailing navigator. So I use all the navigation tools and GPSs and chart plotters so I can find my way across the Atlantic and plot my way on the open ocean charts to be able to follow my journey. And then I had all the instruments telling me the directions and what direction and how many miles I was from each waypoint that I'd put in. And then I actually had a forecasting guru, a guy called Levin Brown, who's actually one of the guys that has done numerous transatlantic crossings on the open ocean rowboats, which are way bigger, with 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 people. And he's very experienced, and he was giving me guidance on what weather was coming. Not that I could do anything about the weather and the storms, but at least I was prepared for them, and I could change my route according.
And how is he talking to you?
Via satellite phone. So every now and again I'd do an update. Every second day or third day I'd do an update on the satellite phone to get an idea of what weather was coming, what the update on the forecast was for the next 2 days, and how I could change my route and my forecast according to what was coming.
And how are you charging the phone?
That's a very good question.
Thank you. It's a real extension cord.
It was the longest extension cord you've ever seen. I had to take those pick and pay ones, but I had 75 attached.
You attached it all the way across the ocean. How are you charging your phone?
No, everything was actually all charged by solar. So my whole craft was the most sustainable craft you can possibly imagine. So everything was run on solar. And then even the water maker, which was a water desalinator unit, was also run off solar power as well. But the problem with that is that even I tested everything in England. When I was traveling for the first month south to be able to get south enough to be able to do the crossing, I had to travel south first and then east. And because of my direction, the sun wasn't coming onto the solar panels in the correct angle.
Yeah.
So it was only charging at about 40% of the rate that it should normally. So I wasn't able to charge my I wasn't able to run my water maker, and I had to take all my systems down. So I actually learned to be able to operate on 10 liters of water a day, which I should have been on double. And that doesn't seem like a problem, but when you're exercising for between 12 and 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you need
You're dehydrated.
4 hours. I mean, you need 4 liters of water to be able to make food. That suddenly becomes a problem. And then I had a sandstorms from the Kalahari Desert that was blowing over the ocean, even up to 900 kilometers offshore. So even though there was perfectly sunny sky, there would be like a red canvas over the whole sky because there was a sandstorm.
And what are you eating?
There was nothing in the manual that told me about that.
Yeah, like what are you eating? You said when I made food, isn't the kitchen on a boat as big as this couch?
A mini kitchen, like this big. So
Yeah.
it was a little cooker, and I took freeze-dried food, and then I put the freeze-dried food in that, and then I took 350 milliliters of water and mixed it in that, and then I boiled it in like a little flame cooker. And that was, quite a serious concern always, because I was always concerned that I was going to burn myself, because the craft's getting hit from all different sides and all the time, and I'm having to make food 3 or 4 times a day because I'm exercising, doing the equivalent of like a full Ironman every single day for 93 days in a row, and and then at night you've still got to, you're not able to see the waves coming, then they're going to knock the craft. I'm in a cabin which is as wide as my shoulders. I'm not even able to sit upright, and then I'm boiling water on an open flame trying to cook my food. Yeah. It was quite terrifying. So I always used to have like burn shield and all these kind of things to be able to make sure that if I did burn myself, that I could remedy myself in that situation.
All right, so basically he lived like a student for 93 days, because it sounds like 2-minute noodles to me.
It was like uber 2-minute noodles.
Uber 2-minute noodles. When we come back, on this 93-day journey, he almost cut his finger off, and he had to fight 2 sharks. Well, not fight, but just hope that they have somewhere else to go besides attend the Let's Eat Chris conference. We'll be right back right here on SABC 3. And welcome back. This is Real Talk right here on SABC 3, where the stage is yours in a deep conversation with Chris Bertish, who wrote the book Stoked. Is stoked like a surfer term, ne? I'm stoked, Bert. Yeah, bro.
It is sort of, actually. So the word stoked comes from an overwhelming excitement and that sense of euphoria when you catch a wave, or some people jump out of airplanes. Some people do a lot of other weird stuff we won't go into, but that sense of euphoria and like overload of positive sense of excitement.
Did you know that you're going to call it Stoked, or were there a few other ones that didn't make it?
The interesting thing is so many people know me, and I'm always so animated and excited about a lot of the stuff that I do. They're like, always stoked. You should call it Stoked. And, we tried a whole lot of different topics, but that one sort of stuck. And, it's been very successful.
So now, 93 days, you're on the Atlantic, you're in a paddleboard. Where do you sleep?
In a very cramped space for a very short period of time.
Okay, so is it, let's say...
So the space is so think of basically like a large coffin that's up, that's sort of got a little bit more room to move.
Okay.
And then put a little red light inside so you can see around. Yeah. And then all your stuff surrounds you. Even my paddles, my backup paddles were so close to me that they'd push into the side of me. In the first 3 weeks, I had a massive bruise on my left shoulder, because you don't realize that the little craft that I was in was doing this all the time. So it's always pushing against you. So that's how small the space is.
Okay, so you get into the space and then you close it.
Then I close the hatch, double close the hatch.
Okay.
And then you're locked inside. So even no matter what happens on the outside, you're like locked in. And in the storms, it got so intense that I would sometimes get rolled inside by giant waves, and then I'd have to strap everything down, and I'd have to literally strap myself in so things didn't hit me, or I didn't get bounced on the top of the roof, and I put a little helmet on, and it's pretty intense in there.
Okay, so no to storms. What's your biggest fear when you're in the ocean? Because is it the storms that can knock you everywhere? Is it a whale and its tail? Is it a shark?
I think, there were so many different... there
were
so many. But I think that the second great white shark that came to visit me was quite frightening, just for the simple reason that he was so enormous and he was in such an aggressive state.
And you were in his house.
And I was lunch, and I was the target. And I realized at that point that, I'd built this modified stand-up paddlecraft of mine, the MP Fish. I'd built it so it had watertight compartments, so if I got a leak, you know, it would fill up that compartment and the rest of the craft would be fine and I wouldn't sink.
Okay.
But the kind of shark that came to visit me that second time around was so enormous and it was so wide and longer than my paddleboard, and it made me realize that if it took one proper bite of my craft, it would flood all my watertight compartments within about 4.5 minutes and I would sink. And that was quite a sobering realization.
But we're told that if, you know, sharks are, A, don't like humans, and B, you have to be bleeding somewhere for it to be alerted that there's food around. So how is it just lurking around you? Like, oh, here we go, Mr. Delivery, you know, we've got some food.
That was like a pocket snack for him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here we go.
Except for I wasn't fast food, I was slow food.
Yes, you're standing still.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing is a lot of people don't realize that along that transatlantic journey, I'm following a migration route. So I follow the currents and the winds that go that route. I also follow the same migration of the turtles. So I was actually with the Two Oceans Aquarium with the educational department. I was racing a virtual turtle across the Atlantic because I do a lot of tag and release with them. And also, it's also the migration route of the biggest great white sharks that do the migration between Africa and the Caribbean, where they also hang out in the winter months.
So when you say big, is it as big as this
yeah,
carpet, the rug?
So to give you an idea, the only ones that do the migration are the full-size adults. And because of the depletion of all the fish stocks in the oceans, and because the water visibility is so crystal clear in the Atlantic Ocean, that these sharks aren't able to hunt like they normally hunt. So the only ones you get are very big, they're very grumpy, and they're very hungry. And when I'm talking big, I'm talking like 6 meters, so, you know, 5 times the length of this couch, and 3 times like double as wide.
It's like a bus.
It's like a small grumpy bus with teeth.
It's like a double-decker bus. Okay, so then, besides that, so there was the shark, and then did you not injure your shoulder at a stage?
Yeah, I damaged my shoulder because I don't think humans are really meant to be doing 2.5 million strokes. And for the last week, I was paddling on one side to be able to go across a storm.
You say something very interesting. You say, you know, that's when you taught yourself to be able to work through pain. That I wanna now interrogate that. How do you teach yourself to work through pain?
If you put yourself in pain enough, you learn ways to be able to turn off different segments of your brain that trigger and monitor and manage pain. So I learned a lot of different unique methods of how to reprogram your mental state and manipulate your mental states to distract it to focus on different things. Because the things that you focus on are the things that grow within your mind. And you can apply that to a lot of things in your life.
You can't say that and then act like you didn't just say nothing. The things that you focus on are the things that are going to grow in your mind.
Yes, that's correct.
Huh? Is that,
Well, think of your, like, and you can apply that to a lot of things in life. So if you ever had that situation in life where you suddenly decided you wanted a certain car.
Yes, and then you see it everywhere.
And you see it everywhere.
Yes.
And you're like, where did that come from?
Yes.
It's like they multiplied.
It's like, I want money, and then I see everyone's got money except for me.
Yeah, I'm still working on that one too. But the interesting thing is that what that actually is, and I've done a lot of studying, and I've really, I find that area of like the mental manipulation of your own mental state really fascinating. So I've worked with a lot, and what that is actually your mind has a filter built in. It's called your RAS, not your RAS. And your RAS is your reticular activating system, and it's like your mind's filter. So all it does is all the things that you really want, suddenly it filters out everything besides that. And that's why when you decide you want that car, it's a Jetta that's like pink, like your thing. Suddenly you see pink Jettas everywhere, and then you see you see signs for home loans, and then you meet someone in a conversation, and you're like, oh, I know a friend of mine's got a car sale. He's got a pink Jetta. He's selling it. It's amazing. You're like, wow, it's like synchronicity. Yes. But actually, it's actually all it is your RAS filtering everything, and everything that you're doing and everything you're talking about, it's your mind trying to help you achieve your goal through what you're doing. So the things that you focus on grow. And you can apply that, and if you learn to take that and supersize that technique, it'll help you help you achieve and get everything that you want in life. Because the things that you focus on and you really focus towards happening, suddenly it brings everything. Your mind will pull all the things in your life and all around you to be able to help you create that and make that bring into life. So that's why thank you.
Yeah, listen.
And I call it mental blueprinting. So you can basically take a blueprint of what you want in your life and what you want to create, and then connect the dots backwards from that point and then bring it into reality. Because if you can dream it and you can see it and you truly believe it, you can achieve anything. So it's about having that vision and then bring it into reality. And all of us can do that.
If you learn nothing else today, that's what you must take away. For the last time, we'll be back after the break. And for the last time, we're back today with Real Talk right here on SABC 3, where the stage is yours. Wrapping up a fascinating talk with Chris Bertish, who is the author of Stoked, and the wonderful things that he has done in his life also transcend into charity. Now, we're going to chat about that, but another question came into my mind, because you know me, I'm practical. Where do you pee and where do you poo when you're crossing?
I love that
You want to know. I'm doing this for you.
I'm glad you're asking the question that everybody wants to ask, but no one asks.
Ever.
Okay, so let's start off with number one.
Okay, yeah.
Are you comfortable yet? Are you comfortable?
I'm good.
Are you comfortable? Okay, so the weeing was really easy because most of the time I'm standing up, so that sorts out that problem really quickly and easily. But at night, when you're in a storm and you're in your tiny little cabin and you really need to go, then suddenly it's not that simple and it's actually really dangerous going out on deck. So I used to have my little wee bottle. So I used to, whip out the wee bottle and then wee in the bottle. And then, that was all good. And then in the daytime, I'd just wee in the toilet next to me because the toilet was always flushing because it's called the ocean. So never had to worry about, Cape Town's got its problem with saving water, don't flush. It was flushing all the time. I was saving water all the time. But the problem came when on day 75, when I got turned over by the fifth wave that caught me, and I'd lost all my other water bottles, and then there were no more water bottles. And then I had to drink out of my wee bottle. And that was a bit of a problem. But
at least it's your own.
It's at least mine. We'll rinse it out quite a bit and all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is, number two obviously wasn't that easy. But I used to swim a lot. So, when they talk about feeding the fish, there are two different ways to feed fish. That's all I can say. And now that you think about it, I had this little fish called Stripe that I met on my journey, who was there after a week. And, all the fish came and went, but Stripe actually, he came with me along the whole journey. And all I can say is he was very big and healthy by the time I got to the other side.
I am never swallowing ocean water again. Again. Chris, do you go for therapy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So why do you go to talk about what you do? Do you go to talk about your family? I don't want to get into your therapy sessions, but I just...
No, it's a very, very intimate, detailed therapy session.
Yes.
It's called the surfboard and the ocean.
Okay.
So when I go out, when I need therapy, that's my therapy. That's my church. So if I need to meditate and I need to be able to bring myself back into the right space and into balance, I get into the water, whether it be surfing, hydrofoiling, windsurfing, sailing. If I'm in the ocean, that's my sanctuary, and that's where you appreciate everything around you, and it also puts me back into balance. If you take me out of water for too long and you lock me up and you send me to Potchefstroom for 2 weeks and my gills dry up, then I become a very unpleasant, unbalanced person.
Grumpy.
Yeah, so therapy.
And would you say that's how you dealt?
Just add water.
Oh, just add water and stir. Is that how you deal with loss? Like when your dad passed away, what was the water your refuge and your therapy?
So I think when my dad passed away, I think what made it quite difficult and challenging for myself was that I was actually there on that day, and I was the only one there. So I had to actually try and resuscitate and bring him back to life. And I think when you put in that situation, even though I was trained for that and I'd actually brought quite a couple people back to life from difficult circumstances that I'd been in the ocean, in big waves and what have you. I think when it's your hero and it's your mentor, I think it makes it more difficult. And you know, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It was a horrendous situation to be in. Did you blame yourself for a while? I think you do always. You try and think of like how you could have done it differently, because all the people that I'd resuscitated before they'd all come back to life, but with my dad I wasn't. But you know, very fortunate that like the doctors told me it was a major heart attack. There was nothing I could have done or done differently. And I always try and see the positive and the negative, and I try and always look at every situation as not as a mistake or that I failed, but just what can I learn from that? What can I take from that? What positive attribute, lesson can I take from that to be able to help me in all areas of my life going forward? And a lot of people, they spend so much time like worried about not going forward and not doing something because they go for fear of failure or by fear that they're going to make a mistake and people are going to judge them. And I don't believe in failure, and I don't believe in mistakes. Mistake is only a mistake if you make it twice. And failure, there's no such thing as failure, only a failure to try. Yeah. So when you try and do something, like I did the 24-hour record 3 times before I got it right. And it wasn't, the first 2 times, I never say that I failed. I didn't succeed. Why didn't I succeed? I didn't succeed because of this. Okay, so I'm going to take what I learned from those experiences and I'll pull those building blocks out, and the ones that weren't successful, I'll pull those out and change them with new ones until I've learned the knowledge that I need in order to change it in order to have a successful outcome. So you are constantly learning and evolving and changing. And that's why if you face your fears and you embrace your fears and you embrace change all the time, then you become very flexible and adaptable, and you can deal with and overcome anything. You go with that flow that you speak about. And when you go in the flow, then everything works.
So I'm pretty sure so many of the kids that you help with the Smile Foundation are watching today, and they were like, that is the guy that gave me my smile. You know, I didn't have a smile. I was born, you know, in that way. And, you know, Chris Bertish gave that to me. He gave me a smile. What would you like, some of the people you help, you'll never meet, right? But what would you like for them to learn just by looking at your life in terms of, forget your professional life and, you know, your goals, but in terms of just personal self-awareness, reflection, development, what would you like them to learn just by looking at your life?
I think, you know, I think it's very important to live your passion.
Yeah.
So do what you love and love what you do. Because, you know, we spend 60 to 80% of our life working. Yeah. So rather don't succeed at something that you're passionate about than hate what you're doing 80% of the time and fail at that, or get let go from a job that you hate anyway.
Yeah.
So if you don't like something, change it. You have the ability to be able to do that. Don't waste your time doing something that you don't enjoy, because life's too short. And focus on finding your passion. Then follow that passion, and that will lead you to your purpose. And once you find your purpose, then you'll never work another day in your life. And if you can do that, and you can find a way to be able to follow your passion and fulfill your purpose that's greater than yourself, it'll help you overcome any obstacle and any challenge and even achieve the seemingly impossible.
Congratulations, we're very proud of you. What you shared today, when we saw the flyer, the pamphlet, we're asking ourselves, who's Chris? If we've had a better background about your story, I don't think anyone would have missed your morning show. So well done to that. We're very proud of you. You are a very brave man. One quick question you didn't put in your story. When do you sleep? Because
that was in the longer version of my story. There's like an hour version, and there's also like a 5-day version.
Oh, I see.
So the sleeping actually was a really big issue. And because I was alone, when I wasn't paddling, the craft was just drifting. And I had a special autopilot which would keep me sort of on the right track. But the autopilot was meant for a bigger craft. And because my craft was so small, anytime the wind was less than 5 to 10 knots, which is very light, and when it was more than 15 knots, which is also quite light, the autopilot wouldn't work properly. So I actually had to turn it off and then float sideways with the conditions and lock off my steering system. So the craft would always be like floating sideways. So because of that, it meant that I actually couldn't really sleep very much at all. So when things were good, I slept for never more than an hour and 25 minutes at a time. But when things were really bad, which it was quite a lot, you know, my craft was so small and it was starting to delaminate inside, which means it was starting to slowly fall apart because of the waves hitting the side of the craft, that I never slept for more than, when the conditions are bad, between 5 and 9 minutes at a time. And the interesting thing is that actually, because I'm a surfer and I can hear so you can hear the waves breaking all around you, my mind was never, ever actually asleep because it was constantly trying to recalibrate the sound of the waves breaking all around me and then working out the percentage ratio of the wave reforming and then hitting the side of the craft. That by the time I got to about 60 to 70 days into my journey, my mind had worked out a way of how to echo sonar blueprint around me so it could basically anticipate a wave reforming and breaking and hitting the side of the craft before it even happened. So I would wake up every like 4 to 9 minutes in a brace position, holding the side of the craft about a half a second to a second before the wave would hit and turn me upside down.
Wow, that's amazing.
No, it's terrifying. But thank you, yeah.
All right, next question.
But apparently it's good. It's good training for having kids, so I'm ready now. Sleep deprivation training.
If you wanted to give up in the journey, what was the alternative? You all by yourself in there.
Very good question.
So I think that's a great question on multiple different levels. There was actually never a time when I actually wanted to give up. And the interesting thing is that people go, oh, you must have thought that there were numerous times when you thought you're going to die and you're going to pull what's called the EPIRB, which means that it triggers an automatic electronic response across the ocean to like emergency services like thousands of miles away. But the interesting thing is that once I set off from Morocco, like no matter what, no matter the consequences, I was going to get to the other side. And no matter what happened along that journey, now whether it was a giant squid or my finger getting almost ripped off, or the great white sharks, or the hatches leaking and I thought I was going to sink. It was always like a giant solving puzzle. It wasn't like I'm going to die. It's like, how can I solve this very quickly in order to survive? And when your incentive for success is survival, it's a very powerful incentive. You know? Yeah. And you've got to just think of it like a giant problem-solving puzzle. So every single time there was a massive life-threatening crisis, I would think to myself, how can I fix this? How can I solve this? And as soon as you do that, your mind will automatically go into problem-solving mode. Instead of trying to think of like, oh, I'm going to die, you've already made that decision. Rather, think of and focus on the right questions for your mind. Because as soon as you ask the right question, your mind will automatically try to go into a more positive state to go and try and solve it.
How would you say selfishness and arrogance assist one to make it to the top? I thank you.
Well, I think you have. I think there are two things. You know, I think some people misinterpret selfishness for confidence, and I believe that you have to really believe in yourself and be very, very confident about what you're doing. Most importantly, why you're doing it. When people talk about the selfish side, I think in a lot of ways you also have to be selfless at the same time. So it's like a delicate balance, because with what I was doing, if I didn't, like my greatest concern is I felt like I had this enormous weight on my shoulders all the time, which were these millions of little kids that I was doing this for. And if I didn't succeed, I would let them all down. And that for me was the greatest amount of pressure that I've ever had in my entire life in order to fulfill what I was going to do. And I was prepared I'd already made peace with the fact that if I died trying, doing what I was going to do, I'd already made peace with that, because I wasn't going to let those kids down.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Bertish!
Thank you, Anele.
Oh, there we go. Our mics are kissing. All right, we're out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on SABC 3. We'll catch you again every weekday, 6 to 7 p.m., where the stage is yours. Ciao, ciao. Life's
a journey. Go the ride.
Of course it is.
Thanks, buddy. Oh. Thanks, guys.
That's cheeky.